How does the moon look tonight on the other side of town? God, I wish I knew. I haven't been reading as much as I would like to. That's primarily because I have been writing a lot in the last few years, and if I'm reading somebody else's book, I start feeling guilty that I'm not writing my own. That being said, when I had a look back at the books that I had read in 2019, I actually read a lot more than I thought I had, so I'm going to share with you the books that I read in 2019. I started off my year reading The Day We Meet Again. This is a proof copy, that is why the title isn't on the front. The front says, their love story started with goodbye. Phoebe and Sam meet by chance at St. Pancras Station. Heading in opposite directions, both seeking their own adventures, meeting the love of their lives wasn't in the schedule, so they make a promise to meet again in 12 months' time if they still feel the same way. But is life ever as simple as that? This is a story of what ifs and maybes and how one decision can change your life forever. My favourite thing is that the bookmark I was using was a train ticket. This is written by Miranda Dickinson, the wonderful Miranda Dickinson, and this book is charming. This book feels like if it was made into a movie, it would be one of those old classic black and white movies that gets played on a Sunday that the entire nation watches because it's a cozy classic. This was published last September. I highly recommend you go and check it out. Next up was Matt Haig's Notes on a Nervous Planet. This is a non-fiction book. The world is messing with our minds. What if there was something we could do about it? Looking at sleep, news, social media, addiction, work and play, Matt Haig invites us to feel calmer, happier, and question the habits of the digital age. I can't say digital. This book might even change the way you spend your precious time on Earth. The thing I love about this book is it's very, very short snippets, which is perfect for someone who wants to read on the train or in intervals. I did a lot of sort of marking in this book. I'm never usually one for writing or highlighting in books or dog-earing books, but I felt like this was an exception because I am quite a nervous person. My job requires me to be at quite a high anxiety level all the time. Stress is usually an 8 or a 9 consistently. So I felt like there are a lot of things in this book that I would want to remember for later, either to help me or make me feel like I am less alone. If you are a nervous or anxious person, this book should be your best friend. A book that I don't have physically because it's somewhere in this house and I don't know where is The Flatshare. That I actually read maybe before either of those books because I did the audiobook at the beginning of 2019. It is written by the marvellous Beth O'Leary, who I got to meet. We did like a little audiobook extra, a little Easter egg type thing where we sat and had a chat, and she is just gorgeous and brilliant and unbelievably clever, and The Flatshare is such a good book. Let me read you the blurb. Tiffy Moore needs a cheap flat and fast. Leon Toomey works nights and needs cash. Their friends think they're crazy, but it's the perfect solution. Leon occupies the one-bed flat while Tiffy's at work in the day, and she has run of the place the rest of the time. But with obsessive ex-boyfriends, demanding clients at work, wrongly imprisoned brothers, and of course the fact that they still haven't met yet, they're about to discover that if you want the perfect home, you need to throw the rulebook out of the window. I might be a tad biased because I played Tiffy in the audiobook. You should all definitely go and check that out, by the way. I might just link it below. But it's a marvellous book with a really unique concept, and the characters are just lush. Next up, we have The Secret Garden, which I read a million years ago when I was still in school, but I read it again because yet again I did the audiobook for Audible for The Secret Garden. This is actually a copy that they sent me. I didn't read this copy, I read my own copy that is really, really pretty, that I bought in Waterstones to do my research. But this book is written by Frances Hodgson Burnett, one of the greatest writers with one of the greatest names. She also wrote A Little Princess, maybe one of my favourite stories of all time. This is the final book that I did the audiobook for. I promise there are no more past this one, but this is Our Stop by Laura Jane Williams. This again is the proof copy, which is why the title is on the side and not the front. And apparently I bookmarked this with a giant custard cream. All anyone wants is to make a connection. Nadia? Oh my god, we did this in the audiobook where I was like, Nadia or Nadia? And I think we ended up going with Nadia. Nadia gets the 7:30 train every morning without fail. Well, except if she oversleeps or wakes up at her friend Emma's after too much wine. Daniel really does get the 7:30 train every morning, which is easy because he hasn't been able to sleep properly since his dad died. One morning, Nadia's eye catches sight of a post in the daily paper. To the cute girl with the coffee stains on her dress, I'm the guy who's always standing near the doors. Drinks sometime? So begins a not quite romance of near misses, true love, and the power of the written word. It has a slight twist, if you'd call it that. I don't even know if you call it a twist, but something happens in this book that I definitely didn't see coming at all and was really surprised. You guys might be way more observant and perceptive than I was, but this book is brilliant, and it will frustrate you how many times the two main characters manage to miss each other. Next up is The Ticking Heart by Andrew Kaufman. He is my favourite author. He also wrote Bourne Weird and All My Friends Are Superheroes, which you guys have heard me mention 1,000 times before. But as soon as I found out he had a new book coming out, I pre-ordered it instantly and couldn't have been happier when it arrived. One cold winter night, Charlie shares a cab with a stranger in a purple hat. As they talk, a cloud of purple smoke overwhelms him and he wakes up to find himself behind the only desk in the Epiphany Detective Agency. Charlie, as it turns out, is trapped in Metaphoria, an otherworldly place that reality has forgotten, a place where everything means something else. His first client is Shirley Miller, who insists on hiring Charlie to find her husband's missing heart. In fact, she's so insistent that she replaces Charlie's heart with a bomb. He has 24 hours to find Twiggy Miller's heart and its meaning, or his own will explode. Andrew Kaufman has a way of writing moments where you just have to pause and put the book down for a second and think, oh my god, that is so clever. So clever. For anyone who is a hopeless romantic, for anyone who uses the "it's complicated" status on Facebook, this book is for you. You have to read it. The Ticking Heart by Andrew Kaufman. This next book might be my favourite book that I read in 2019. This is Queenie by Candice Carty-Williams. Oh my god, I don't know what it is with people whose last name is Williams. They're really good writers. I was actually gifted this book, not by the author or the publishing company or anyone to do with writing the book, but by a company called Books That Matter. My wonderful friend Molly Melia Redgrave bought me a birthday present, and it was a subscription box from this company called Books That Matter. And basically this company send out boxes every month to anyone who subscribes. They've always got a different theme, and the people who work at the company saw my name on the order. It turned out they were fans of mine, and they very, very kindly sent along a few other bits and pieces with the present that my friend Molly had bought, and they've been sending me boxes ever since, and I think they're an incredible company. Yes, I have been gifted. I was originally gifted by my friend Molly though, and she's not the company, so that one didn't count, but the rest have been gifted. But one of the books in the original box that I got was Queenie. And as soon as the box arrived, I just loved the look of the book so much that I just delved in straight away and started reading it under my desk in my 2-hour-long break at Lema's The Stage concert. And it's just brilliant. It's just so brilliant. It's so cleverly written. There are things that happen in life that don't happen to me because I am white, but they are on my periphery. But this book put me at the center of them in a really honest, natural way. I just want everyone to read this book because I think it's great. I'm going to read you the blurb now. Sometimes I feel frantic and I feel like everything is just spun out of control, out of my hands. I don't know. I feel a bit like for a while I've been carrying 10 balls of wool, and one ball fell, so I dropped another to catch it, but still didn't catch it. Then 2 more started to unravel, and in trying to save those, I lost another one. Do you know what I mean? Meet Queenie Jenkins. Journalist, catastrophist, expressive, aggressive, funny, dramatic, loved, lonely, enough. Such a good book. And also was shortlisted for the Waterstones Book of the Year, I think. Next up is How Do You Like Me Now by Holly Bourne, definitely one of my favourites from last year. This book felt very relatable for me because the protagonist is an influencer. Cringe, cringe, cringe. Soul shrivels and dies. And it really touches on the idea of who we portray online versus who we are offline. Everyone wants to be Tori Bailey. A straight-talking, best-selling author, she's inspired millions of women around the world with her self-help memoir and uplifting posts online. What's more, her perfect relationship with her long-term boyfriend is the envy of all their friends. But Tori isn't being honest. While everyone around her is getting engaged and having babies, Tori's boyfriend will barely look at her, let alone talk about marriage. And when her best friend Dee unexpectedly falls in love, Tori's in danger of being left behind. Tori's built a career out of living her best life, but is she brave enough to admit it's not what she wants? This book is so good, and for anyone that's as obsessed with the online reality that we create for ourselves versus the actual reality outside of Instagram and Twitter, you have to read this book. So interesting, really fascinating. You should also follow Holly Bourne on Twitter because again, she is hilarious. Next up is Before the Coffee Gets Cold by, really don't want to screw this up, Toshikazu Kawaguchi. In a small back alley in Tokyo, there is a cafe which has been serving carefully brewed coffee for more than 100 years. But this coffee shop offers its customers a unique experience, the chance to travel back in time. In Before the Coffee Gets Cold, we meet 4 visitors, each of whom is hoping to make use of the cafe's time-travelling offer in order to confront the lover who left them, receive a letter from their husband whose memory has begun to fade, see their sister one last time, and meet the daughter they never got the chance to know. But the journey into the past does not come without risks. Customers must sit in a particular seat, they cannot leave the cafe, and finally, they must return to the present before the coffee gets cold. This book took a little while to get into. Originally, this was a play that then got turned into a book, and you can definitely tell when you're reading it just how perfect it would be put on stage. I would give anything to see that show. You can also tell when a book has been translated, and I think there are certain things in any book that has been translated that just read better in the original language. But despite that, and despite the fact that it does take a little while to warm into the voice that it's being written in, it is a really clever story, and it completely rewrites the rules that we have for time travel. There are so many rules for time travel that we just accept, like don't mess with anything in the past because that will affect the present and the future. It's fascinating to me that we have generated this set of rules for something that doesn't exist. Time travel doesn't exist, and yet we all know what the rules for time travel are. That's bonkers to me, but this book completely rewrites them, so it's worth a read just for that in of itself. But it is a really clever and very sweet book. Next was Normal People by Sally Rooney, which, weirdly, I went into work one day and like 3 other people were reading it. This again was one of my favourites from last year. I think this book is genius. I still haven't read her other book, Conversations with Friends. I loved this. It got weirder than I expected it to, but not a bad thing. I can deal with weird. Connell and Marianne grow up in the same small town in the west of Ireland, but the similarities end there. In school, Connell is popular and well-liked while Marianne is a loner. But when the two strike up a conversation, awkward but electrifying, something life-changing begins. Normal People is a story of mutual fascination, friendship and love. It takes us from that first conversation to the years beyond in the company of 2 people who try to stay apart but find they can't. Just found a receipt in this book for Yang Yum Chicken from On the Bab in Archistry. Thank you very much. Something about this book that took a lot of getting used to is the fact that none of the dialogue are in quotation marks, which apparently is something very common in Irish literature, but took me a little while to figure out who the hell was speaking or the fact that anyone was speaking at all. But never have I rooted for 2 people to be together more than I did for Connell and Marianne. This is a love story, but doesn't really feel like a love story. It doesn't feel like a romance. It feels like life happening to 2 people, which is sometimes frustrating and sometimes wonderful. You won't regret reading this book, it's brilliant. Finally, the last book I read in 2019 was Lanny by Max Porter. Again, I picked this up because it was in the shortlist for the Waterstones Book of the Year. Not far from London, there is a village. This village belongs to the people who live in it and to those who lived in it hundreds of years ago. It belongs to England's mysterious past and its confounding present. It belongs to Mad Pete, the grizzled artist, to ancient Peggy gossiping at her gate, to families dead for generations and to those who have only recently moved there. But it also belongs to dead Papa Toothwort, who has woken from his slumber in the woods. Dead Papa Toothwort, who is listening to them all. This book comes in 3 parts, and each part is written in a completely different structure from the last. And I preferred the structure from part 1, which made part 2 and 3 harder to get through. It's still a really enjoyable and a really clever and extremely creative and kind of magical read, but you can never just settle into reading it. You really have to kind of keep concentrating because it's ever changing. And let me show you some of the pages, hang on. There are parts of the book that look like this, and sometimes the words overlap completely, so it becomes really difficult to read, but that is part of the charm of this book. Completely unlike anything you might ever read. It's so unique, and it's really strange because I keep wanting to call it magical because it is, but it's also really earthy and slightly gritty. It's magical in a world that doesn't like or agree or believe in magic. It's a weird and wonderful book. So they were the books I read in 2019. I am currently on a slight hiatus from adult fiction. Adult fiction always makes it sound like it's porn. I just mean fiction not written for children, because at the moment I'm reading fiction written for children, because if you watch my last video, I am currently writing a retelling of the classic that is Ballet Shoes, so I'm trying to get into my middle grade 9 to 12-year-old brain, and I'm currently reading 4 Children and It, which is Jacqueline Wilson's retelling of 5 Children and It. I went and bought 7 books the other day from Waterstones, all from the middle grade section. I had the best time. And I even found a few books that are set in theatre, which is really going to help me out. Also, for anyone who is still watching this inevitably long video, I have a Bookstagram, which is basically just Instagram for people who like and read and want to talk about books. It's called Prattle and Pages. Please come and join me there. I haven't been very active over the last couple months because I've been opening Les Mis, which has taken up all of my time. I have been living, breathing, eating, sleeping Les Mis for the last 2 months. But now we are open. We opened on the 16th of January officially. So I will be much more active on there from now on. So please come and join me at Prattle and Pages. And thank you very much for joining me. I will see you very soon.